It was an unusually hot afternoon in the small town where Amir lived. The sun hung high in the sky, making the narrow streets shimmer with heat. Birds were quiet, and even the wind seemed tired, barely stirring the dust on the road. Amir had just finished a long day at work. He worked as a delivery man, carrying parcels from one end of the town to the other. His job was tiring, and the scorching sun made it even worse, but he never complained. He believed that work was meant to be done with honesty, no matter how difficult it was. Amir walked along the familiar street toward his small home. He noticed the usual things, the old bakery with its warm smell of bread, the children playing near the fountain, and the shopkeeper waving at him as he passed. But something was different today. Near the edge of the road, a figure caught his eye. It was a woman, sitting alone on the dusty ground. Her clothes were simple, yet they didn't seem ordinary. She looked tired, almost fragile, and there was a strange sadness in her eyes. She seemed lost, as if she didn't belong there at all. Amir paused for a moment, unsure if he should approach, but then he remembered what his mother used to tell him. If you can help someone, even in the smallest way, don't hesitate. Amir took a few steps closer and noticed that the woman was quietly struggling to drink from a small, empty bottle. Her lips were dry, her hands shaking slightly. She looked at him with a faint hope, the kind that comes when someone is waiting for a small kindness. Amir quickly reached into his bag and pulled out the water bottle he had brought for himself. "Here," he said gently, holding it out. "Drink. You must be very thirsty." She looked at him, surprised, and then slowly took the bottle. Her hands were warm and soft, yet there was a strange sense of caution in the way she moved. She drank carefully, as if every drop of water was a treasure. Amir watched silently, feeling a mix of curiosity and concern. After a few moments, she handed the bottle back and whispered, "Thank you." Her voice was soft, almost musical, but carried a weight that Amir couldn't understand. He smiled and nodded, not saying much. It was just water, he thought, nothing extraordinary. Yet, looking at her, he felt that this small act of kindness meant something much more. He had helped many people before, but something about her presence was different. It was as if she carried a story he couldn't yet see. Amir asked if she needed more help. She shook her head gently, her long hair falling over her shoulders, shielding her face from the sun. I am okay for now," she said. There was a pause, a moment of silence that seemed to stretch longer than the heat around them. Amir realized she was alone, truly alone. Nobody had come to check on her. Nobody had asked if she was fine. Most people would have walked past, pretending not to notice. But Amir had stopped, and that simple choice changed the rhythm of this afternoon. He decided to stay with her for a little while, keeping her company until she felt stronger. They sat in quiet conversation, though she said little about herself. She spoke carefully, choosing her words as if she were guarding a secret. Amir tried not to press too much. He understood that some people needed space, especially strangers who carried invisible burdens. Instead, he told her small things about his life, about his work, his family, and the town they lived in. He laughed sometimes, sharing stories of clumsy deliveries and funny customers. Gradually, the woman's eyes softened, and she smiled faintly. It was a small, quiet smile, but Amir noticed it. He realized that even a tiny gesture of kindness could bring relief to someone's heart. As the sun began to lower, Amir offered her a place to rest. He didn't think twice about it. It was the natural thing to do. "You can come with me for a while," he said. "I have a small home, nothing fancy, but you can rest and drink properly." She hesitated for a moment, and Amir could sense her hesitation. Perhaps she had been hurt before, or maybe she simply didn't trust Exiled. But after a while, she nodded, agreeing to go with him. The walk to his home was quiet. They passed the bakery, the fountain, and the small market where vendors were packing up their goods. Amir noticed that people stared briefly at the woman, as if they sensed something unusual about her, but nobody spoke. The woman walked gracefully, yet there was a faint sadness in her step. Amir wondered about her story. Where did she come from? Why was she alone in the middle of such a hot afternoon? But he didn't ask. Sometimes, he thought, people reveal their stories in their own time. All one could do was offer help without expecting anything in return at his home. Amir offered her water again, along with a light meal. She accepted quietly, eating with small, careful bites. Amir noticed how polite and gentle she was, how her presence seemed to calm the little space around them. He watched her for a moment, thinking about the strange feeling that had come over him when he first saw her. It was as if she carried a quiet strength, even in her apparent weakness. And yet there was something else, something mysterious that he couldn't quite understand. The afternoon passed slowly. They spoke about simple things, the town, the weather, and memories of childhood. She listened more than she spoke, but when she did speak, her words were thoughtful and deep. Amir realized that her life must have been very different from his. There was a wisdom in her silence, a depth in her gaze that made him feel both curious and humble. He felt grateful for her presence, though he didn't know why. It was strange, he thought, how sometimes strangers enter your life and leave an impression that lasts far longer than anyone expects, as the sky turned shades of orange and pink. Signaling the approach of evening, Amir could see the fatigue in her eyes. He offered her a small place to rest, a simple corner with a blanket and a pillow. She thanked him softly, her voice carrying the faintest echo of relief. Amir sat nearby, finishing some chores and preparing for the night. He couldn't help but glance at her occasionally, noticing how peaceful she looked when she closed her eyes. Something about her made him feel that he had witnessed more than just a moment of need. He had been part of a tiny miracle, a human connection that transcended ordinary life. By the time night fell, the town was quiet. The stars began to appear, tiny specks of light in the deep blue sky. Amir stepped outside for a moment, looking up and thinking about the day. He had no idea that the woman resting in his home was someone extraordinary, someone whose life story reached far beyond the boundaries of the town. Yet in that simple act of giving water, he had unknowingly become a part of her journey. And though he didn't realize it then, this small kindness would ripple through both their lives in ways he could never have imagined. The night settled softly over the town, wrapping the streets in a calm silence. Amir prepared for sleep, but his thoughts kept returning to the woman he had helped. He wondered what tomorrow would bring, whether she would stay or leave, and what secrets lay behind her quiet eyes. Despite the uncertainty, he felt a strange warmth in his heart, a sense of having done the right thing, even in the smallest way. And sometimes, he thought, that is enough. Sometimes a simple act of kindness can change everything, even if you don't yet understand how. The next morning, the sun rose slowly over the town, painting the streets with a soft golden light. Amir woke early, as he usually did, and quietly made his way to the kitchen. The woman, whom he still did not know by name, was already awake. She sat by the window, gazing outside, her hands wrapped around a cup of tea. There was a calmness in her posture, but Amir could see the faint shadow of sadness in her eyes. Something about her presence felt different from the day before. She seemed both fragile and strong at the same time, as if she carried invisible burdens, but had learned to bear them quietly. Amir prepared breakfast and placed a plate in front of her. She thanked him softly, her voice barely above a whisper, yet full of sincerity. He noticed that she ate slowly, savoring each bite, and he realized that she had probably gone hungry for a long time. It was a simple breakfast spread, some fruits, and tea brought to her. It seemed like a small comfort in a life that had been far from easy. Amir watched her carefully, curious about the story behind her quiet demeanor. She did not speak about herself unless he asked, and even then, her answers were brief, almost evasive. Yet there was something magnetic about her silence, something that drew him in and made him want to understand more. After breakfast, Amir went about his usual chores. He needed to deliver a few parcels, and he invited the woman to come with him. She hesitated for a moment, but eventually agreed, wrapping herself in a light shawl. As they walked through the town, Amir noticed the way people looked at her. Some stared openly, while others whispered to each other. There was an aura around her that made her stand out, though she did not seem to want attention. Amir realized that she carried herself with quiet dignity, and yet there was a vulnerability in her steps that made him feel protective. He wondered how someone so unusual had ended up alone on the streets. Thirsty and tired, just the day before. Throughout the day, the woman spoke very little. When she did, her words were thoughtful and precise. She asked questions about the town, about the people, and about Amir's work. It was clear she wanted to understand the ordinary world she had been thrown into, as if she were learning a new life from scratch. Amir answered her patiently, explaining the small routines of the town and the simple joys and struggles of its people. He shared stories of neighbors, of children playing in the park, of the baker who always left a loaf of bread for the stray dogs. The woman listened intently, sometimes nodding, sometimes just watching, absorbing everything. Amir felt that she was learning not just with her mind but with her heart, noticing the details most people overlooked as the day went on. Amir began to notice little things about her. She had a gentle way of interacting with others, even strangers. When a child ran past and accidentally dropped his toy, she bent down, picked it up, and handed it back with a warm smile. When a vendor tripped over a crate, she offered a hand without hesitation. It was small, quiet kindnesses, but they seemed to ripple through the people around her. Even Amir felt a subtle change within himself, inspired by the way she acted without expecting anything in return. He realized that her presence had a calming effect on everyone, even though he still knew almost nothing about her past, despite her gentle nature. There was a mystery that Amir could not ignore. She avoided certain questions, especially those about her life before she appeared in the town. If he asked where she came from, she would smile faintly and say only that she had lost her way. If he asked about her family, she would look down, her fingers fidgeting with the shawl, and reply vaguely that she had none left. Amir respected her privacy, but his curiosity grew each day. There was a feeling that she had lived a life far beyond the ordinary, a life full of experiences he could barely imagine. Yet she never boasted or complained. She simply existed with quiet grace, moving through the world like someone who had learned to survive, no matter the odds. As the afternoon sun grew hotter, Amir suggested they rest under a large tree near the town square. They sat on a worn bench, the branches casting a cool shade over them. The woman closed her eyes for a moment, letting the gentle breeze wash over her. Amir watched her carefully. There was a sense of deep sorrow in her posture, a sadness that seemed heavier than just the hardships of life. He wondered what had caused such pain and why she had come to this small town, far from the life she once knew. But again, he said nothing. He understood that some stories could not be rushed. They had to be revealed in their own time. While they sat together, people continued to notice her. Some glanced in awe, others in curiosity, and a few with a quiet suspicion. Yet the woman did not react to any of it. She seemed unaffected by the attention, focused instead on the simple presence of life around her, the children laughing, the vendors calling out their prices, the birds flitting from tree to tree. Amir realized that she had a deep appreciation for the ordinary, something most people took for granted. She found beauty in the small details, in ways that made him reflect on his own life and the routines he often overlooked. Being around her made even the simplest moments feel meaningful. By evening, they returned to Amir's home. The woman helped with small tasks, moving quietly, but her actions were precise and thoughtful. She cleaned up after dinner, arranged a few items neatly, and even watered the small plants outside. Amir noticed that she had a rhythm, a sense of discipline, and a natural kindness that seemed to touch everything she did. He wondered if she had always been this way, or if life had shaped her into someone extraordinary through hardship and exile. There was a calm strength in her that felt unusual for someone so quiet and reserved. It was as if she carried a hidden world inside her, one that he could only glimpse through her small gestures. As the night settled in, they sat outside under the stars. Amir had grown used to her presence over the past 2 days, but he still felt a sense of wonder and mystery. He wanted to ask her about her past, about where she had been, and why she seemed so different from everyone else. Yet he hesitated, sensing that she would share only when she was ready. Instead, they spoke quietly about the stars, the patterns they could see, and the calmness that night brought after a long, hot day. The woman pointed out constellations with a gentle smile, explaining their shapes and stories in a way that felt both simple and profound. Amir listened, captivated not just by what she said, but by the way she spoke softly, with quiet certainty. as if she had known many worlds beyond the one they lived in. As the night deepened, the woman finally spoke about herself in fragments and metaphors. She hinted that she had once belonged somewhere important, somewhere powerful, but that life had forced her to leave. She spoke of choices she had made, of paths she had followed, and of moments she could not forget. Amir listened carefully, piecing together the hints she gave. Her story was not complete, but it was enough to make him understand that she had lived a life far beyond the ordinary. A life filled with challenges and responsibilities that most people could never imagine. And yet, despite everything, she carried herself with humility and kindness. Never seeking recognition or reward, Amir realized that he had stumbled upon something rare, a person who had experienced the extraordinary but still valued the ordinary. He felt privileged to be in her presence, to witness her quiet strength and her gentle heart. And yet he still did not know her full story, and she did not reveal it fully. There was a sense that some truths were too heavy, too complex to share all at once. But even in the fragments she gave, Amir felt a connection, a growing understanding that life was bigger than routine, and that kindness and compassion were powers greater than wealth, status, or fame. As they prepared for sleep that night, Amir reflected on the day. The woman had taught him lessons he hadn't expected, lessons about patience, about seeing the extraordinary in the ordinary, and about understanding people without needing to know every detail of their lives. Her presence had changed the rhythm of his day, made him more aware of the world, reminded him of the importance of small acts of kindness. He had given her water, and in return, she had given him a glimpse into a life far beyond his own, a life that combined mystery, resilience, and quiet grace. Before drifting off to sleep, Amir looked at her resting quietly across the room. He realized that she had become more than a stranger. She was a teacher, a reminder that the world held more wonders than he had ever noticed. And though he did not yet know the full story of her exile, he felt that her journey was intertwined with his own in ways that were just beginning to unfold. That night, under the soft glow of the moon, he understood that some encounters change lives forever, even when they seem small and ordinary at first. The woman had arrived as a stranger, but she had already begun to leave an indelible mark on his heart. The following days passed quietly, yet something had changed in the town. People began noticing the woman more, not because she sought attention, but because her presence had a subtle, calming effect on everyone she met. Children seemed drawn to her gentle smile, and neighbors felt lighter, almost as if her quiet kindness made the ordinary world a little brighter. Amir observed all of this with a mixture of curiosity and admiration. He had known many people in his life, but no one had the same quiet, powerful effect as she did. Amir noticed how she moved through the streets, helping without being asked. If someone struggled to carry a heavy basket, she would appear at just the right moment, lending a hand. If a stray dog wandered into the market and frightened a child, she would softly call the dog away and comfort the child with a calm voice. Even though she did not talk about her past, it was clear that she understood people and animals in a way that Amir could not explain. She seemed to carry empathy in her very being, as if kindness were second nature to her. Amir tried to spend as much time with her as possible. He walked her through the town, pointing out small things that most people ignored. The way the sunlight filtered through the leaves of the trees, the smell of fresh bread from the bakery, and the laughter of children echoing across the narrow streets. He wanted her to feel at home, to understand that this ordinary place could hold simple joys, even if life had been difficult for her. She listened attentively, her eyes reflecting not only observation, but also deep understanding. Sometimes she would smile faintly, as if remembering something far away, and Amir felt that there was more to her story than she was letting on. One afternoon, Amir and the woman were walking past the town square when they noticed a boy struggling to sell flowers. His basket was overflowing, and he was tripping over his own feet, clearly frustrated and embarrassed. Without hesitation, she stepped forward, helping him balance the basket and giving him gentle encouragement. "You're doing fine," she said softly. "Take your time and smile. People will notice your effort, not just the flowers." Amir watched as the boy's expression changed from frustration to gratitude, and he realized that her words carried more power than any of his own. It was a simple act, yet had left a lasting impression on everyone who witnessed it. Amir began to notice subtle changes in himself as well. He had always been a kind man, but being around her made him more thoughtful, more aware of the needs of others. He found himself stopping to help strangers, to listen more carefully, and to appreciate the small moments that often went unnoticed. Her influence was quiet, but undeniable. She did not ask for recognition or praise, yet people responded to her in ways Amir had never seen before. It was as if her presence alone reminded them of the goodness in the world. One evening, as they sat by the fountain in the square, Amir asked her a question he had been holding back. "You have a way of understanding people, of noticing what they need even before they ask. How do you do that?" The woman looked at him, her eyes thoughtful. She didn't answer immediately. Instead, she watched the rippling water, listening to the distant laughter of children and the soft murmur of the townspeople. Finally, she spoke, her voice calm and steady. "I've learned to watch, to listen, and to feel. Life teaches you that kindness is not about words or actions alone. It's about noticing the world around you and choosing to act, even when no one is watching." Amir nodded, realizing that her wisdom came from experience, from a life far beyond the ordinary routines of their town. Over the next few days, the woman continued to move quietly through the town, helping in small but meaningful ways. She visited the elderly, offering a kind word or a gentle smile. She helped clean up public spaces, picking up litter or watering the plants. She even assisted in the local school, quietly encouraging children to read and learn. Amir observed all of this, feeling increasingly grateful for her presence. He had never imagined that one person could have such a profound effect on a community, simply by being attentive and compassionate. Despite her kindness, there was still an air of mystery about her. She avoided talking about her past, and Amir could sense that she carried memories that were painful or difficult to share. Yet, she never let those memories affect her actions in the present. She treated everyone with respect and care, as if she had chosen to live in this moment rather than dwell on what had been lost. Amir admired her for this, realizing that strength was not always loud or visible. Sometimes the greatest power was in the quiet endurance of everyday life and the small decisions to do good, no matter the circumstances. One afternoon, Amir watched as she helped a woman who had fallen near the market. The woman's wrist was scraped, and she was visibly shaken. The stranger knelt down, gently cleaning the wound and speaking reassuring words. Amir noticed how carefully she moved, how she seemed to understand not only the physical pain but also the emotional fear. The woman calmed quickly, smiling through her tears. Amir realized then that her ability to help was more than just kindness, it was empathy. The ability to connect with others on a deeper level and make them feel safe and understood. Amir felt a growing sense of connection with her. He was no longer just someone who had given her water. He was part of her world, a witness to her quiet influence. He began sharing more about his own life, telling her about his childhood, his family, and the small struggles he faced daily. She listened without judgment, offering only gentle encouragement. Sometimes, she would ask questions that made him reflect, helping him see his own life in a new light. Her presence was a mirror, showing him the parts of himself that were good, even when he had doubted them. As the days turned into a week, the woman became a subtle force in the town. People began to smile more often, to help each other without expecting anything in return. Even Amir's friends and neighbors noticed the change in him, the way he carried himself with more patience and awareness. He realized that the woman had taught him, without intending to, the true meaning of community and human connection. Her exile from her past world had brought her to this small town, and through her presence, she was quietly reshaping the lives of those around her. One evening, they sat outside Amir's home watching the sun set over the rooftops. The sky was painted in shades of pink and gold, and the air was calm and still. Amir felt a deep sense of gratitude for having met her, for having been part of her journey even in a small way. He knew that her story was far from ordinary, that her past carried experiences and knowledge he could barely imagine. Yet she had chosen to live simply, to touch lives in ways that mattered, without seeking recognition or reward. He realized that true greatness often hid in quiet acts, in moments of selfless compassion that could change the course of many lives. As the stars began to appear in the night sky, the woman spoke softly, almost to herself. "Every life has value," she said. "Even the smallest act of kindness can grow into something larger than we can see. The world remembers those who care, even if they do not realize it." Amir listened carefully, feeling the truth of her words resonate deeply within him. He understood that by simply offering water to a stranger, he had participated in a ripple of kindness that could spread far beyond his understanding that night. As they prepared for sleep, Amir felt a quiet sense of anticipation. He did not know what the future held for the woman, or for himself. But he sensed that their paths were connected in ways that were just beginning to unfold. The town had already begun to change, subtly but meaningfully, through her presence. And Amir knew that he had learned lessons that would stay with him forever, lessons about empathy, about noticing the needs of others, and about the profound impact of quiet, consistent kindness as he drifted off to sleep. He thought about the woman's journey, about the unseen burden she carried, and about the gentle strength she displayed every day. He felt a deep respect for her, and a growing sense of responsibility to continue the small acts of kindness she had inspired in him. And though he did not yet know the full story of her past, or the reason for her exile, he understood one truth clearly. Sometimes, the most extraordinary people walk among us unnoticed, shaping lives in ways we cannot immediately see. The woman had arrived as a stranger, but she was already leaving a lasting mark on Amir, the town, and the world around them. The next morning was quiet, the town wrapped in the soft light of early dawn. Amir woke to the sound of birds chirping and the faint rustle of leaves outside his small home. He looked over and saw the woman sitting by the window, her hands folded in her lap. She seemed lost in thought, her eyes gazing at some distant memory only she could see. Amir hesitated for a moment, wondering if today would be the day she would share more about her past. He had grown closer to her over the past week, and though he respected her silence, a part of him was curious about the life she had left behind. After breakfast, they decided to take a walk through the town. The streets were peaceful, with only a few people beginning their day. Children played quietly, and vendors opened their shops with smiles, acknowledging Amir as he passed. The woman walked beside him, moving with the same quiet grace that had drawn his attention since the first day he saw her. Amir noticed the faint weight of sadness in her movements, subtle heaviness that spoke of experiences far beyond the ordinary. He wanted to ask her about it, but something told him that the words would come only when she was ready. As they reached a small park on the edge of town, the woman stopped near a bench. She motioned for Amir to sit beside her. There was a seriousness in her gaze, a sense that she had something important to say. Amir waited patiently, sensing that this moment was different from the days before. Finally she spoke, her voice soft but steady. "I think it is time you understand a little more about me," she said. Amir nodded, encouraging her with a gentle smile. He had no idea what she would reveal, but he knew that, whatever it was, it would change his understanding of her forever. She began slowly, carefully choosing her words. "I did not always live a life like this," she said, gesturing to the small town around them. "There was a time when I belonged somewhere very different. I had responsibilities, people depending on me, and a world that demanded I follow certain rules. But I could not follow all of them. I made choices that others did not understand. I chose compassion over control, humanity over power. And because of that, I was cast out." Amir listened quietly, letting her speak. He could see the faint pain in her eyes as she remembered her past. "It was not easy," she continued. "I lost everything I knew, everything I had worked for. I had to leave behind people, places, and a life that was supposed to be mine. I was alone in a world I did not recognize, and I had to learn to survive with nothing but my choices and my conscience." Her words were simple, but the weight behind them was profound. Amir realized that her exile was not just a matter of distance or place. It was a life shaped by principles and decisions that few could understand. She paused, looking down at her hands. "When I arrived here, I had nothing. I was just a stranger, weary and unsure. But I realized that even in this ordinary world, I could make a difference. I could still choose kindness, even if no one noticed. I could still help people in small ways, and in doing so, I could reclaim a part of myself that I thought was lost. Amir felt a deep respect for her. Her strength was quiet, but unyielding. She had faced loss, rejection, and hardship, yet she had not let it break her spirit. Instead, she had found a new purpose, one that was simple, yet powerful. Over the next hour, she shared more about her past, though always in fragments and gentle hints. She spoke of a world that valued status over empathy, control over compassion. She described people who had power but used it without care. And she spoke of moments when she had chosen differently, moments that had cost her dearly. Amir realized that she had once been part of something extraordinary, something beyond the ordinary life of the town. Yet, she had given up that life for something more meaningful in her heart: kindness and humanity. Amir asked her questions carefully, not wanting to press too hard. He wanted to understand, but he also wanted to respect the pain she had endured. She answered with honesty, but without revealing every detail, leaving gaps that Amir could only imagine. These gaps, he realized, were not weaknesses, but parts of her strength. She had survived by making choices that others might not understand. And she had come to this town not to be recognized, but to live in a way that reflected her values. As they walked back through the town, Amir noticed how people greeted the woman. Some smiled warmly, some nodded with respect, and others seemed to sense a quiet authority in her presence, even though she never demanded it. Amir began to understand that her past, though hidden, influenced her actions in subtle ways. Her experiences had shaped her into someone who could see the needs of others, who could act with empathy, and who could inspire change without words. Her exile had not diminished her. It had refined her character. When they returned home, the woman sat by the window again, looking at the setting sun. Amir joined her silently, sensing that she needed the quiet more than conversation. After a while, she spoke again. "I came here to remember what truly matters," she said. "To learn that power and status are not as important as compassion and kindness. To see that even in the simplest acts there is meaning, and to find people who will accept me for who I am. Not for what I once was, or what I could have been." Amir nodded, understanding that she had chosen a life of humility and service, even though she could have had much more if she had followed the world she left behind. The evening grew darker. The stars began to appear in the sky. The woman pointed them out gently, tracing imaginary lines to form constellations. "Even in exile," she said, "there is beauty. Even in loss, there is hope. We carry the light of what we have loved and what we have chosen, and it guides us through the darkness." Amir listened, feeling the truth of her words. Her life had been difficult, her choices costly, yet she had not allowed bitterness to take root. Instead, she had found meaning in small, quiet acts that touched the lives of everyone around her. Amir felt a deep connection to her story. He realized that her exile was not just a personal tragedy. It was a lesson in resilience, in choosing values over convenience, and in finding strength and kindness. She had come to the town not to be noticed, but to make a difference quietly, to remind people that even the smallest actions matter. Amir understood that the life she had left behind was extraordinary, but the life she had chosen now, ordinary, humble, and filled with compassion, was just as remarkable in its own way. As the night deepened, they sat in silence, watching the gentle glow of the moonlight. Amir reflected on everything she had shared, on the courage it took to live by principles in a world that often ignored them. He thought about his own life, about the routines and small struggles that sometimes felt overwhelming. He realized that her story was a mirror, showing him what true strength and resilience looked like. It was not about fame or power. It was about making choices that mattered, even when no one else saw the impact. Before sleep, the woman spoke one last time. "I am grateful for your kindness," she said softly. "You did not know who I was, yet you helped me when I needed it most. That act reminded me that even in exile, the world has good people and that goodness can be found everywhere if we look for it." Yes. Amir felt a warmth in his chest. He had given her something as simple as water, yet it had opened the door to a bond and understanding that went far beyond that single gesture. He realized that sometimes the smallest acts of kindness could have the greatest impact, shaping lives in ways no one could foresee. That night, Amir lay awake thinking about her story. He understood that her exile had been painful, but it had also made her who she was, a person of quiet strength, deep empathy, and unwavering compassion. She had chosen a life that reflected her values, and in doing so, she had touched the town, him, and everyone around her. Amir felt grateful to have met her, and he knew that her presence would leave a lasting impression not because of her past, but because of the choices she made every day to act with kindness and understanding. The morning was calm and quiet, and the town slowly came to life under the soft glow of the sun. Amir woke early, as usual, and looked toward the corner where the woman slept. She was already awake, sitting quietly and gazing out the window. Today felt different. There was a certain stillness in the air, a sense that something was about to change. Amir could sense it, even though he did not yet know what it was. Over breakfast, the woman spoke little. She sipped her tea slowly, her hands wrapped around the cup. Amir watched her, noticing the gentle way she held herself, the quiet strength that seemed to shine through her calm demeanor. He realized that over the past week, she had become more than a visitor in his life. She had become a teacher, a guide, and a friend. The town, too, had begun to feel her influence in ways he had never anticipated. People were kinder, more attentive to each other, and even small acts of compassion were beginning to ripple quietly through the streets. After breakfast, she stood and turned to Amir. "I must go soon," she said softly. Amir felt a sudden tightness in his chest. He had grown used to her presence, to her quiet guidance, and the calm way she made even ordinary moments feel special. "Where will you go?" he asked, trying to keep his voice steady. She smiled faintly, a mixture of sadness and warmth. "I do not know yet," she replied, "but I have learned what I needed to learn here, and it is time for me to continue my journey." Amir understood, though it was difficult to accept. He had grown attached to her, and the thought of her leaving made him realize just how much she had changed his life. Over the past days, he had seen kindness in action, empathy in its purest form, and strength that did not need to be loud or forceful. The woman had quietly reshaped his perspective on life, teaching him lessons he would carry forever. Yet, as he looked into her eyes, he knew that her path was different from his. She had her own journey to follow. Before she left, they walked through the town one last time together. Children waved at her, smiling brightly, and she waved back gently. Neighbors nodded with quiet respect, and even strangers seemed to sense her presence and offer polite greetings. Amir noticed how the woman moved with the same quiet dignity she had always carried. Touching lives without trying, inspiring without speaking, it was as if her every step left a small mark of goodness, a reminder to everyone she met that kindness mattered as they walked. Amir asked her about the lessons she hoped people would remember. She looked at him, her eyes thoughtful. "I hope they remember that every action matters, no matter how small," she said. A smile, a kind word, a helping hand, these things may seem simple, but they shape the world in ways we cannot always see. Compassion is more powerful than any wealth, more enduring than any status. And the world becomes brighter when people choose to care. Amir nodded, feeling the truth of her words resonate deeply within him. He realized that her exile had not diminished her. It had strengthened her, making her wisdom and kindness all the more meaningful. They reached the edge of town. Near the road where Amir had first met her, she paused, turning to face him. "Thank you, Amir," she said softly. "You did not know who I was, yet you offered help without hesitation. That small act reminded me of the goodness that exists, even in a world that sometimes seems harsh. You gave me hope, and in return, I hope I have left a little hope for you as well." Amir felt a lump in his throat. He realized that their meeting had been more than chance, had been a moment that shaped both their lives in unexpected ways. Before leaving, she gave him a small, meaningful gesture. She took his hand briefly, placing a soft, warm touch that carried gratitude, respect, and a quiet promise that the lessons they had shared would endure. Amir felt a wave of emotion he could not fully describe. It was not sadness, though he felt a tinge of that. It was a deep appreciation, a recognition of the power of human connection and the subtle ways lives can intersect. He knew that she would leave, but her influence would remain in his heart, and in the town she had touched. As she walked away down the road, Amir watched her figure growing smaller in the distance. The sun shone on her, casting long shadows behind her, and the town seemed to hold its breath. People they passed earlier lingered in the streets, watching quietly, sensing that something extraordinary had just moved through their lives. Amir felt a sense of pride and gratitude. Though she had come as a stranger, she had changed everything, quietly teaching him, inspiring others, and leaving the town more compassionate and attentive than before. That evening, Amir returned home alone. The house felt emptier than usual, but he carried with him a new understanding of life. He reflected on the past week, the moments of silence, the shared conversations, the lessons in kindness, and the quiet influence of someone who had chosen empathy over status, humanity over power. He realized that life was more than routines and struggles. It was about choices, small acts, and the impact we leave behind, even if we never see it fully. Over the next days, Amir noticed subtle changes in himself and in the town. He found himself helping more actively, stopping to offer assistance without being asked, listening carefully, and appreciating the small moments of life. Neighbors smiled more often, children played with gentleness, and the community seemed to have absorbed a quiet sense of empathy and care. Amir understood that her presence had left a ripple effect, one that would continue to grow in ways he might never witness directly. In quiet moments, Amir thought about the woman's words, the lessons she had shared, and the resilience she had shown. He remembered her strength, her humility, and her unwavering commitment to kindness, even in exile. He realized that true greatness often lay not in power or recognition, but in the choice to act with empathy, compassion, and understanding, even when no one else notices. Her life had been extraordinary, not because of what she had lost or left behind, but because of the way she had lived with integrity and purpose, shaping the lives of others quietly but profoundly. Months passed, and life returned to its usual rhythm, but Amir never forgot her. He shared the lessons she had taught him with others, inspired by the simple acts of kindness that had transformed both their lives. He told stories to children about helping others, spoke gently to neighbors about noticing small needs, and approached every day with a renewed sense of awareness. The town, too, continued to reflect her influence in ways that grew gradually but surely. People smiled more, cared more, and remembered that even ordinary acts could carry extraordinary meaning. Sometimes, Amir would look down the road where she had left, imagining her walking toward new places, carrying her wisdom, her kindness, and her quiet strength with her. He hoped she was safe, that she was continuing her journey, and that she found the same small joys in each place she visited that she had discovered here. Though she was gone, her lessons remained alive in him, in the town, and in everyone she had touched, quietly reminding them that compassion could change lives. At night, Amir would step outside, look at the stars, and think of her. He remembered her words about hope, about choosing kindness even when the world seemed harsh, and about finding meaning in small actions. He realized that the stars above were a reminder that life was bigger than any one person, that every act had a ripple, and that even in absence, influence could remain. The woman had arrived as a stranger, yet she had left as a teacher, a guide, and a lasting presence in his life. Amir knew that some people come into our lives not for recognition or permanence, but to teach, to inspire, and leave us changed forever. She had been one of those people, a person whose life, though marked by exile and hardship, carried lessons that could outshine even the most ordinary existence. He felt gratitude for having met her, for having shared moments of life together, and for having witnessed the quiet power of kindness and empathy. And so, the town continued its days, carrying the echoes of her presence in the way people treated one another, in the gentle smiles, and in the growing awareness that even the smallest actions mattered. Amir continued his life, more aware, more compassionate, and more inspired than ever. He understood that life is measured not just by achievements or wealth, but by the way we touch others' hearts, the choices we make, and the kindness we show. No matter how small, the woman, though gone, remained a guiding light, a memory of quiet strength and extraordinary humanity. She had come as a stranger, yet she had reminded Amir and the town of what truly mattered. And in the years to come, her lessons, her spirit, and her gentle influence would remain, quietly shaping lives and inspiring acts of kindness. Proof that even the smallest gestures can leave the greatest impact.